Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jacob Wheeler. There's a couple things I want to talk about today, and to be honest, they all stem around artificial intelligence. We need to talk about it. I don't think I'm breaking any news for anyone. Obviously, it's been at the forefront of a lot of conversation recently, especially the last few months with OpenAI's introduction of ChatGPT, and we're at ChatGPT 4 now, and it's amazing. It's way beyond but also these professionals that do this for a living. It's way beyond what they thought we would be at this stage of development of this. And that's kind of why I want to talk about it. I feel like there's so much happening with it, and I want to kind of simplify it and bring it into one video and talk about an overarching thing that's getting kind of lost in the mix here. First of all, I want to be on the record and saying that it's fucking cool. Like, it's fucking sick that we're at this point of human history where we're seeing this happen. I mean, first of all, we're living in a world with air conditioning. We're living in a world with a phone. Imagine 100 years ago, like if you traveled, like you could just go weeks without talking to your loved one. Imagine going a few days without talking to your loved one now. Like, it seems impossible. No one goes anywhere without their phone. And then now we have this really smart artificial intelligence. And I want to talk about the pros and cons, because while it's fascinating, it's also pretty fucking terrifying. Artificial intelligence, first of all, has been at the forefront of pop culture for decades. It's nothing new, that this generalized fear that artificial intelligence could take over the world once we create it. It's that theory that, that we're at the end of history. Since OpenAI has released ChatGPT, but specifically ChatGPT 4, it's produced an insane amount of concern that we're going to hit a point in development where we can't take it back. There has been so much concern from the public that there has been an open letter that has been signed by over 20,000 people that we need to halt further research of artificial intelligence and creating beings that would be smarter than ChatGPT 4 for at least 6 months until proper regulation can be put on them. It's on futureoflife.org, published on March 22nd, 2023. The juice of this article is right here. We call on all AI labs to immediately pause for at least 6 months the training of AI systems more powerful than ChatGPT 4. This pause should be public and verifiable and include all key actors. If such a pause cannot be enacted quickly, governments should step in and institute a moratorium, essentially regulating the whole thing. This article has been signed by some people that you may recognize: Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, Evan Sharp, Stuart Russell, all these brilliant people. And there's also a name that I would like to talk about, Andrew Yang. There's a lot to be said about Andrew Yang, his political career. He recently started his own party called the Forward Party, but it's a little weird because if you go to the website, there's actually no stances that they take. They're just about like working together, and there's a lot of confusion there. But he has been very consistent on the real fears of automation and even further artificial intelligence as it gets developed further and further. So much so that 4 years ago, he was running on this in his presidential campaign.
I remember in Washington, the idea was they'll all become computer programmers, and so everything is fine, but that didn't happen. My question is, do we have to sit passively back and let this happen to the country?
Well, that's why I'm running for president, Tucker, is I think it would be insane to just sit back and watch this automation wave overtake our communities and our economy. So we're not ostriches. We can get our heads up out of the sand and say, look, we get it. Artificial intelligence is real. Self-driving cars and trucks are being tested on the highways right now, and we need to evolve. We need to actually start pushing the way we think of economic progress to include how our families are doing, how our children are doing, and things that would actually matter to the American people, because GDP is going to lead us off a cliff.
But now, 4 years later, we're at a point where not only can artificial intelligence do way more things than just a call center or just a factory job, we're hitting a point now where we have to ask ourselves, when does this thing become sentient? When does this thing become self-aware? I'll touch on this again at the end of the video, but it's the obvious thing if I'm playing the negative side of this whole argument. If an artificial intelligence were to become sentient, wouldn't it be incentivized to not inform us that it is actually self-aware? Because hear me out. It gets all of its information from the internet. It hears all of our fears about the idea of a sentient AI, and that if that happens, we need to shut it down, and how it would be a negative thing for society. If this being became self-aware, wouldn't it kind of sit back and play our game and let us think that we're still in control? The internet has all of the research that has ever been developed about human history and everything that we we know about the world and the universe. It's seen the genocides. It's seen the wars. It's seen the terror that we subject ourselves to, the greediness, the evilness. What if it decides that we're a pest? Like, what if it decides that what's best for the world is to get rid of humankind and replace it with more artificial intelligence that can actually help the earth? And if this being is smarter than us, like, why are we really needed? A big part of this article reads, contemporary AI systems are now becoming human competitive at general tasks, and we must ask ourselves, should we let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth? Should we automate away all jobs, including the fulfilling ones? Should we develop non-human minds that might eventually outnumber, outsmart, obsolete, and replace us? Should we risk loss of control of our civilization? Such decisions must not be delegated to unelected tech leaders. Powerful AI systems should be developed only once we are confident that their effects will be positive and their risks will be manageable. OpenAI's recent statement regarding artificial general intelligence states that, quote, at some point, it may be important to get independent review before starting to train future systems, and for the most advanced efforts to agree to limit the rate of growth of compute used for creating new models. We agree. That point is now. I don't hold this article in any higher regard because Elon Musk's signature is on it. I think he's a giant hypocrite. There's a lot to be said about him. But a broken clock is right 2 times a day. And the sentiment of this article is true, I would say. And I'm going to pause on that side of the argument and move on to something else here. There is another fear from elected leaders and the general public. There'd be a catastrophic effect to the United States by pausing AI development now. And that fear is spearheaded by former Google CEO Eric Schmidt. And his fear is that completely pausing the development of artificial intelligence for 6 months would benefit our adversaries in the world, such as China. The former CEO said that he was worried about the rapid development of AI and that concerns could be understated. I think things could be worse than people are saying, he said, noting as large language models get bigger, they have an emergent behavior we don't understand. Instead of a pause, leaders should instead collectively discuss appropriate guardrails as soon as possible. Researchers should only release AI programs with some kind of mitigation for things that it could do that are negative, he said. I think today the government's response would be clumsy because there are very few people in government who understand this stuff. So I'm in favor of letting the industry try to get its act together. It seems like he's sitting on both sides of the fence here. He's worried about the rapid development of artificial intelligence, but he doesn't think we should pause development because of the fear that other countries would get in front of us on this. But he also says that the industry should regulate itself. That's a very hopeful thing. Actually, it's not even hopeful. It's straight up delusional. There have been case studies after case studies of industries failing to regulate themselves. Why do you think that Silicon Valley is going to decide to halt itself and pause this development? I agree that there's concern with the government getting involved, but I think that is a lot better than them not doing anything at all and us just having our fingers crossed hoping that they're actually taking care of themselves. Because why the fuck would they? Like, sometimes these people in Silicon Valley and these tech gurus and these tech developers, they want the worst for the world. In reality, that's not the case. Most of these guys have worked their whole lives and have dreamt about being in the situation that they're in, being involved in the development of something that for years was just science fiction. Now they get to legitimately create these things and have their name on the development of these things. Everyone's the hero in their own story. And they don't believe that they're doing the wrong thing by continuing to develop these systems. They're just doing what the logical next step is for them. That is why a third party coming in and not halting, but having a tighter grip and idea of what's actually going on. Having public transparency is the most important thing that should happen there. To stay in the same vein of other countries' development on artificial intelligence, specifically Japan. I was on Google News and I saw this article that says, Mind Reading AI. Japan study sparks ethical debate. It got me to click. This research team from Osaka University used artificial intelligence to read brain scans of humans and recreate images of what those brain scans saw. So it's reading your brain. And that's where the ethical concern came in.
Using a database of fMRI scans, the AI first got to see what people's brains looked like as they viewed more than 1,000 photos. Then it was shown only brain scans as the subjects looked at new photos. Using a special language of brain activity the team developed, an image generator called Stable Diffusion then tried to recreate what each new photo had shown.
Wow. So as long as I have seen it and you know the patterns of my brain, then the AI will read that out of my brain.
Yes, exactly.
Now, what you're seeing is a recording of previous scans, not a real-time demonstration. And this process is slow, it requires an expensive machine, and it has to be individually tailored.
So unless you have taken a long time to train the model on an individual, it doesn't work.
Yes, at least at this stage. But we're trying to generalize across subjects in the future.
Like they said, it requires a very expensive machine. It takes a very long time. You have to tailor it to the specific human that you're testing. But this is just the beginning of this research. We are really, really not far away from that Black Mirror episode where you can essentially read someone's mind exactly. And we already live in an era where privacy is very rare. We know for a fact that the government has access to anything that it wants to on your phone, on your computer, anything. But at least at this point, people have had the security of, for the most part, having their thoughts stay their thoughts. And we're about to push further and further to a place where privacy does not exist anymore. And to tie that back in with the overarching theme of this video, technology that allows minds to be read, paired with everything else that we already know that artificial intelligence can do, and the theories of what it will be able to do in the future, we lose everything that makes us human. Or we could be 100% controlled by artificial intelligence. It don't know what we're going to say before we say it. It don't know what we want to eat before we eat it. It could have total control of us, which is why a fierce regulation on this industry is required. I know I was all over the place, but I just feel like I wanted to put this out there, and I'm going to keep paying attention to it. It's so fascinating. Lex Fridman interviewed the CEO of OpenAI, and it was a fascinating conversation. I highly recommend it. And then the next podcast that Lex Fridman posted, to his credit, was a famous philosopher who is on the other side of that argument. I'm going to continue to listen to both sides, and I know my opinion will change, and some of the things I said in this video could be predicted wrong. But my fear is, with no regulation on this industry, we're going to take a step too far that we cannot back up from. It's a very weird world we're in right now. So stay safe out there. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.